from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss, Stefano Fusaro. 37 days until decision day. 37 days without banter for David Goss. The banter era is over, David. You've joined Bobby Warshaw
it's
in
not
absentia.
that it's over. It's that it's the stretch run. These are all 6-pointers.
We don't have time for banter.
Yeah, I'm basically 2012 Houston Dynamo. We know what time of year it is.
Gotcha.
The leaves have changed. Banter is done. Now it's about cup runs.
The stands at Robertson Stadium are packed.
Yeah.
We are ready to set pieces.
Will Bruins ready to
Defensive
dance.
stability.
Set pieces and Kalen Carr counterattack.
12 is that's pre-Will Bruin.
No.
No,
Oh, that's Will
Really?
Bruin.
Yeah.
Will
Oh
Bruin
my
was there.
gosh.
Yeah.
But-
Houston guy over here is like,
I was
come on,
there
guys.
in 2012.
Don't
Yeah,
be-
I remember Will
Don't
Bruin
be a
there.
fool.
I was like Brian Ching, glory.
That was
years,
a
yeah.
lasted like Brian Ching,
Yeah.
Kalen Carr era.
We've just gone through all of the MVP winners over every year for Major League Soccer.
Which is-
so my historical reference points are all over the place.
Which is why banter's not dead, because if you were listening to us about a few minutes ago with that list, the true MLS sicko-ness, if that's a word, came out.
Yeah,
on
maybe
that
I let it all
conversation.
flow there.
Yeah, you let it off.
We
for the
went through-
show.
We had a little delay. Anders was, as he always is, very helpful in helping us kill time and quizzed us. What do you think we were, percentage-wise, hits?
I think so how many years has it been?
We got them all eventually.
Yeah,
We
I was-
struggled on a couple.
And I don't think we said many names that were incorrect. Our years were wrong.
Yeah, I had Christian Gomez in 07, but that was 06. Wiebe got Luciano Emilio.
Surely it was all finalists at the very least.
Right.
Surely.
We struggled weirdly on Landon Donovan winning in 09.
I got it.
But David got it eventually. Took a long time on Amado Guevara in
Which
2004.
is sad for me.
And part of that is like I was at those games as a
too.
fan. He was not an MVP.
I think he went 10-10, right? That was the
Yeah,
season?
10 and 10.
It was one when you
that
look,
was
yeah. You look back on it; those are not exactly the golden years of attacking production.
yeah.
Yeah.
01 through about 05, 06. Not the best years for MLS.
And if you've lived through that, and now you get Lionel Messi,
yeah.
oh, what a treat that is! Match day 32 gets Lionel Messi as well. We assume he's going to start. He did not play in Bolivia for Argentina. Miami are at Atlanta. Orlando are hosting Columbus. Philly, Cincinnati. El Trafico, Hudson River Derby, the nicest rivalry in soccer. Minnesota Sporting Kansas City. So much more. We'll talk through match day 32 here in just a second. We will, of course, also talk about the New England Revolution and the carousel of changes that they have made over the course of the last 72 hours. I think it's hard to nail down the exact timeline. We'll try to take you through what has happened, who is now the interim manager, because it's no longer Richie Williams, who is taking some time off and will be reassigned within the organization. But so much to unpack there ahead of a match against the Colorado Rapids. Also going to do some award predictions. That's how we got on MVP, and our squad pick predictions, and going to go for better than 1 for 5.
Is that what we got last
That's
week?
1 for 5. Alan Polito was your guys' one.
I'm
I
proud
wasn't
of us.
involved.
Yeah,
I
I'm
wasn't
proud of
involved.
us.
Was it 2 for 5 the week before, too? So
Something
we're
like that.
something about 3 for 10, 30%.
Yeah, batting
Batting
300.
300, guys.
Yeah, we're
Hall of
super
Fame
close,
numbers.
super close to going 5 for 5 on this. Just that's going to come out of nowhere. So we'll take you through all that, and then
If
hit the
we
mailbag.
ever go 5 for 5 on this, we lead the next show with it.
Yeah,
100%.
With the prize money we win, I don't think we're eligible, but we might just have to retire. All right, game you're most looking forward to this weekend. The stretch run is on. We all get it. Playoffs are in the balance. 7 teams make it. 2 teams say they did, but then play in the wild card game and probably get knocked out in the first round. What's the game you're looking forward to here, Dave?
I would say it's a 6-pointer.
Oh,
Must win. I'm going to use those so you guys can't use
please
them.
mix in as many as you can in this analysis.
So the game I'm most excited about is Columbus against Orlando, and we did the previews for a bunch of games, and that as we got to that one, it's like, one, I think there's a question mark. How does Orlando play at home against a team like Columbus, which 3rd place in the Eastern Conference, 5 unbeaten? I still don't know that I've learned who Orlando wants to be and how they dictate the game.
Do you think there is a question mark? If you're Orlando, you're not going to stop Columbus from dictating the game, so don't you just sort of adopt your road?
That doesn't mean that you don't do more than you would last year.
I also think what we've seen from Columbus or from Orlando over the past 6-8 weeks is they're actually more comfortable when they are dictating the game. Right. And they did well grinding out results the first part of the year, coming out of that Tigres series in CCL and mixing in a lot of new faces, a lot of young players with I think more of a burden on them than they've had in the past. And it wasn't always beautiful, but it was always functional. But as they've sort of rounded into form and developed that chemistry, this is a team that wants the ball. And it starts at the back, and not necessarily with Gallese, but like Robin Janssen remains the best ball playing center back in MLS.
Robin Janssen's going to have a big show today.
He's about to have a big show. Big Robin Janssen. But he allows them to have possession in different spots on the field and at a different tempo. And that really suits Pereira. That really suits Facu Torres. I think they've hit on something with Angulo on the wing opposite Facu Torres, because Facu Torres is a very good player. He's not going to stretch the field. Angulo loves to stretch the field. So it gives them balance without necessarily having symmetry. And then they're allowed to make the field big because of that. Oscar Pereira, he's a chameleon of a coach. They do a lot of different things, but one principle he always has is the fullbacks get up, the fullbacks get forward. So I think what we've seen over the past 6 months or 6 weeks is they are at their best when they're doing that. And then I think there's also an onus on them being at home to be the protagonists. And oh, by the way, one thing we know about the Crew is when you let them be the protagonists, you lose 4-2, like what happened to Montreal last weekend. So you don't want the Crew to get into a rhythm. You don't want to just sit and absorb. I completely stole your segment. Sorry, Dave.
No, it's fine. Outside of Leagues Cup against Inter Miami, they haven't given up more than one goal over the course of the last 2 months. And like, as Doyle is saying, that's been their key on top of Facu Torres finding his feet. But all of that has been like enough to get them over the top. They haven't had to be explosive. The other part of this is, at some point, they're going to have to continue to progress even more. I'd rather take that risk in the regular season and see who you are against the Columbus than to have to do it in the playoffs. So if Orlando's going to try and continue to take steps that way, I think now is the time to do it. And so that, and then Columbus is always worth watching. Yeah. Columbus are the most fun team to watch.
We all agree this is the game of the weekend.
I don't know. I went first, so I said it.
I mean, the most entertaining soccer, probably the most fascinating soccer. Yeah, but I mean, on a weekend,
potential for chaos too.
If Lucho was playing for Cincinnati, for instance, if he wasn't suspended and Bedoya wasn't suspended, I think you could go Cincy Philly. Like that would be a pretty easy decision. You could go El Trafico.
Atlanta Miami is the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think we have
there's a bunch this week.
Yeah, overflowing.
Isn't there an El
buffet of
Trafico?
choices. Yeah,
El Trafico.
Yeah. There's gonna be clowns there.
Yeah. What? I'm
Payaso.
Oh yeah. You know what?
It was like
I should be the last
ago,
person
maybe.
to miss that. Like as someone who enjoyed it more than anyone else.
You've just been on vacation.
Who literally wore a Ricky Pooge jersey backwards in the aftermath of that event on this show. I probably should have remembered that. I was looking through the numbers here for Orlando. It's not even at home, other than against like St. Louis, who you'd expect, and Toronto. They aren't super ball dominant. It is more around the 50% mark. Even against against Chicago, it was like around that number. So I'm curious to see how that balance goes. And I think that's a question mark for every team that plays the Crew. Doyle, what's the game that you're watching?
Philadelphia, Cincinnati. I mean, I'm watching all the games, but this one, Cincinnati, I want to see them. I'm still waiting for them to hit like fifth gear. It's weird to say because they're going to end up on 70 points. They're going to win the Shield. They have the MVP. That's a tease. They've been really good through most of the year. They at no point have they looked overwhelmingly great. And I think they have the pieces to be that. And the clock's ticking a little bit. And they've tended to match up well against Philly the last couple of years. So I'm waiting for it to click. And part of this goes down to Brandon Vasquez, right? Part of this is he has not been as good in league play as he was last year for this team. So more of it has fallen on Lucho Acosta than we saw in last year. Now the defense has balanced that out. On the flip side, the Union last time out was not good. We thought that they were rounding into shape. We thought that they were going to start maybe narrowing the gap and pulling away from the rest of the pack in the Eastern Conference, but instead they kind of fell on their faces. We think they're better than that, but they don't look it for most of the year. They haven't looked it for most of the year. They just look like a good team. So it's weird. Like they're such a known quantity the Union are, because we've all seen them play 50 games a year for like the past 3 years, and the personnel is largely stayed the same. A few in, a few out, but like this is still mostly the same Union team of 2022, and that was mostly the same Union team of 2021. The real changes came after 2020. So it's weird to say we don't really know who they are in these moments, but it kind of feels like that for both of these teams. And like there's almost no better situation to plant a flag and say this is who we are in a big game against a playoff caliber opponent with stuff on the line, and it's home field for Philly, and it's basically clinching the supporter shield for Cincinnati. Plant the flag here in this one, say this is what we look like when we're in fifth gear and we're really going after it. And I'm hoping that that's what we get from both these teams.
What would you do if you're Pat Noonan without Lucho? You've had to deal with that very few times this season. Even like when they didn't have him in the lineup in Vancouver, they rested him. He came off the bench and scored a game-tying goal, but he's suspended. The flip side, Bedoya is suspended. It's sad that this was the game that it happened for.
Yeah.
Is it Kubo?
I mean, it's probably Kubo. In the past, he's put Barriel as a 10, and there are very few guys in the world who primarily wing back, but secondary number 10.
And could be that good of a wing back and then come in as a number 10.
Like, as Tom has reported.
Yeah,
right. Like Tom's reported another time, there's like legitimate interest from the Ajax in Barriel. So, this is a guy who's very talented. Probably Kubo at this point. He's been getting a lot of reps recently. If you're going to play him as the most advanced of that midfield three, he's going to play as a number 10 very differently from Lucho. I think what you would end up seeing is both center forwards dropping deep and then Kubo sort of making runs from out of central midfield, sort of delayed runs, sort of misdirected even inside out to create wide overloads. And then you get both forwards coming back into the box. It's going to look different. It'll be fun.
The other option that they have gone with is Angulo, and then just there is no 10.
Yeah.
It's just 3 functional center mids and
turn it into a knife fight.
And you're going to play Philly, right? It's going to be that anyway. So can Barrial find his space down that wing, and can Vasquez and Bupenza create for themselves over the top 2v2? And I think that this matchup gives you that option if you want it because of the way Philly will play.
What would be the most important thing the rest of the way, Steph, if you were looking at this Cincy team to get to that fifth gear before the playoffs? Like, what's the one thing that you would be trying to get going?
I mean, I feel like you want to get Brandon Vasquez a little bit more opportunities. I feel like Lucho being there has kind of masked. Brandon Vasquez hasn't been bad, but he also hasn't been elite, I think. I think maybe getting him a little bit more opportunities in front of goal. Bupenza as well, trying to.
It's almost it's the chemistry between him and Vasquez and Lucho has just been off, right?
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, they're still playing very well together, but it's just not that like, okay, you can tell that this is the team that will continue this run in the playoffs because this chemistry between their front 2 or 3 is so good. It's okay.
It's not effortless.
It's not effortless.
No.
It takes like it
little bit labored at times.
Takes a lot for to get Brandon Vasquez in the right spots, to give him the service in the spots that he wants to receive the ball, to have the opportunity to take a shot on goal. I also want to see just how Bupenza can kind of really come into his own, into this attack, find his role. I think that's kind of where you want to see for them to take that next and get to the fifth gear, like you said.
Feels like it could be that game for Bupenza, who seems like a guy who would like to be a little bit more ball dominant than he can be with Lucho.
Yep.
Like, that's just me playing again, second, the Bobby Warshaw game of like body language, reactions to moments on the field, holding onto the ball too long.
Key. It's key stuff. Goal celebration.
Essential.
Goal celebration analysis. Yeah.
Of course, I've watched the complete YouTube video of all Bupenza's goals in the 2 years before he arrived in MLS. So that really like buttresses my analysis here. But maybe it's an opportunity to just have him be a little bit more of the main character and just say, like, if we give him a little bit, get him going, get him some goals, he's off and running. Steph, I think I know where you're going here with the game you're watching.
I should really stop picking Inter Miami and Messi. It's just like, oh yeah, the Miami Argentinian guy again. Yeah, picking them. But let's be real.
You were born for it.
This is the game of the week. It really is.
Yeah.
The storylines alone. Messi and Almada. Tata going back to Atlanta. Maybe Josef going back to Atlanta with Messi in this group. I know he's been back already, but I just think that this is the game where we know what Miami has been, and we know how important this game is for them, but it also is extremely important for Atlanta because it makes such a big difference if Atlanta can get a home playoff game in that stadium versus having to be on the road during the playoffs. For Miami, we were doing the previews of this game, and I think that
on Apple TV, by the way, there's a preview for every single game. We should just mention that.
Yeah.
On MLS Season Pass.
Yes.
And we're just talking about how Miami is getting obviously Messi coming back after after being with Argentina and missing the last game. Miami wins against Sporting Kansas City. But just the options that Tata is going to have, it's going to make it a lot more complicated for Atlanta because they really don't know what team is going to be on the pitch. He can go out with a 4-3-3. He can go with a 3-5-2. It depends on all these guys. They have 9 players coming back from the international break. Inter Miami does. So it's almost like the unknown of how this team is going to be set up that's going to make it a lot more complicated for Atlanta to figure out, I feel like. But yeah, you could have Jordi Alba and DeAndre Yedlin in that wingback position and bring the other center backs back. You could go with a 4-3-3, which is what they played against Atlanta in Leagues Cup, where they absolutely dominated that game. So I feel like that's also what makes it interesting, just like the amount of options and how diverse this team, Inter Miami, can play. I feel like just makes it all the more interesting. You're
going to start Atlanta. Josef, though. You have to start Josef
because of it, just because he's in Atlanta. Can you say though
strictly on that? Because I had not been operating with that attitude.
I'm operating.
Campagna scored twice last game,
and
Facundo Farias.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I get what you're saying, and from a storyline perspective, yeah, that's what you want. Is that the best Inter Miami team can put out with Josef leading the line? I don't know.
I think for this game, it's the best. You put Josef in the starting lineup for the return to Atlanta.
Team narrative agrees.
Yeah.
In danger of getting in trouble and talking about the little engine that's Atlanta United, which no one wants to talk about that club.
Yeah.
This I also think is a big moment because I said coming out of that Leagues Cup game, they weren't a real team. Like I wasn't shocked they lost 4-0. We were talking about Miami, I think in the what challenges have they have? And I was like, that doesn't count as one. I feel differently about this Atlanta team very quickly because of what they did in the transfer window. They've been undefeated since Leagues Cup has ended.
That's not true.
Sorry, they lost to Cincinnati.
Yeah, right.
But they've been competitive.
Yeah.
They gave up, I think they lost 2-1 to Cincinnati. The midfield, I think, is a lot cleaner. Miles Robinson looks good. They finally got Abram sort of up to speed, and then you've been healthy with Akumakis. This, I think, is a big game for Atlanta to sort of put their stamp down and say, yeah, we actually are a relevant team in the Eastern Conference. If they're the first team to beat Inter Miami in the conference at home, and I think they're going to, the crowd's going to come out for it. And there's an expectation in that city that they're the big team and that they're the ones who, put the show on. I think this could be a big game for them to sort of reassert themselves for the first time under what Garth Lagerwey has started to build.
Is it a bigger game for Inter Miami or for Atlanta United?
I guess every game is bigger for Inter Miami because they can't afford to drop the points. So I guess I have to say that one.
Fair.
But from a cultural point of view, yeah.
It's an interesting scheduling kind of split for Atlanta. They have 6 games left. The next three are Miami at home, at DC, Montreal. So sort of like teams around the playoff line that they would look at and say, just, on the balance of things, we should expect to at least win. But you would think get from 2 home games and away game, get at least 7 points there. And then it's at Philly, Columbus, Cincinnati. So it's like, okay, can you get in position to get 2 home games in the first round? Okay, now can you beat essentially your peers at the top of the East? Miami's probably in that second category, just not in the standings. Most talented, best form. We'll see what they can do.
Potential MVP.
God, don't give it all away. Don't give it all away. What would you do if you're Tata outside of the Josef?
4-3-3.
Just
if
bang
Messi's
on?
healthy, and that's not a guarantee, he didn't play on Tuesday against Bolivia. Now we think that's just precautionary and that he'll be okay this weekend. But yeah, 4-3-3, Messi on the right, Josef up top, and either Robert Taylor or Farias on the left. You go with Aviles and Kamal Miller at center back, which is tough on Kristoff, but it's the way it goes when you're a deep team. Yedlin, Jordi Alba, Busquets, Kremasky, and Arroyo.
Yeah.
Robert Taylor doesn't play anymore?
I said Robert Taylor.
He said either Robert Taylor or Farias on the left. Right.
So the other thing I think we have to discuss, especially for away games, is Messi at center forward and Farias and Robert Taylor in the team.
I was going to suggest, could you think about going 3 in the back because you're basically bracketing Yakumaki. Almada likes to operate centrally, and now you have Alba and Yedlin running in behind 2 outside backs that like to get forward.
Yeah. That's an option for them, and I think obviously with Aviles coming in, they have 3 starting center backs that they could play. But we saw them do this with Messi, what was it, the end of the Cincinnati game? As a way to sort of like buttress the fact that he's not going to defend. You want him out there for attacking, and in the end, if Josef and Campagna are less dangerous than those 2 players, doesn't really matter who the 3 are. You want the 3 most talented and dangerous players out there, and there's a chance that neither of the center forwards is on that list.
I mean, I think when we talked about a 3-5-2 with them, if you're gonna have Alba and Yedlin as the wing backs, 3 at the back, the 2 guys that you want at the top, I think you want speed. You're gonna want Messi, obviously, but then I think it's Farias there in that top. If that's how they're going to play, I think that's Farias.
Do you see Farias long term as more of kind of almost a false 9 as opposed to a winger?
I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen him enough to say. I think he is a true winger because he has so much speed on that side, but I think he can play that. I think it's kind of one of those things where I don't know yet what his best position is. He's been pretty good at multiple spots already. But if you're going to play in that 3-5-2, I don't know. I feel like that's the best 2 to have against that Atlanta team, especially in that leaky Atlanta team. But I get your point with Josef, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah. Josef.
Yeah.
Boo. I might beat you on that bet.
I know,
but not because of not because of Eber.
Yeah.
Eber's been, he hasn't played.
Right.
So we'll both just lose.
Yeah.
We're both losers.
Making
right.
that bet was probably a conclusion that we were both just losers.
2 losers.
That's okay. All right, the game I'm watching, El Trafico, no doubt about it. 2 teams that are desperate. LAFC have lost 3 straight matches, all to non-playoff teams. The Galaxy are in good form, but because of their terrible form and we thought they were like just straight. They were the chaos merchants of the first half of the season and are still paying for it in the standings, are still below the playoff line by 4 points. They can't jump the line. Every other team in the West outside of them in Colorado could conceivably jump it this weekend should they win. This is the perfect mashup of El Trafico. LAFC desperately need energy, vibes, something, anything to look dangerous, to look like the team we knew before CCL. It's like Denny Bouanga and everybody else feels like they just sort of fell off.
Bouanga has fallen off.
I know, but
I don't know why we're not saying like they lost Inter Miami because Bouanga couldn't finish basic chances.
Okay, that's fair. But Bouanga was so far ahead of what should reasonably be expected of him all the way through CCL that drop off was inevitable. I still give him credit for playing at a super high level. Who else on this team could you say has either matched or elevated form from last year? There's not a single one.
Bouanga's fallen off, but he's still pretty much the only one.
He's the threat.
Doing anything, and the only threat right now. Like you said, LAFC, fine. Against Miami, fine. He was not great. He didn't finish, but he was the only one creating anything. He was the only one creating those chances, really, in that game.
Yeah, that's fair.
For the, and then, for the most part. Then you got the fighting Payasos on the other side, and they're going. I just needed to say that. I just had to get back to that.
I dug into the numbers for the Galaxy a little bit this year.
You were going to say something about clowns.
I was not, but I can.
No, I dug into the clown numbers.
Yeah. I dug into the clown numbers this year. Galaxy last year were 4th in the league in expected goals per shot. They got, I think, more shots inside the box than any team in the league. One of the points that I've always made about Chicharito and center forwards like him, and by like him, I mean guys who don't get a lot of touches. Guys who are super low usage, even for center forward. And that's mostly what Chicharito's been throughout his career. His movement opens up spaces for the other wingers, the attacking midfielders, the rest of the attack as a whole. And it also pushes the opposing back line deeper. The run makes the pass a lot of times, and Chicharito off ball is literally one of the best center forwards I've ever seen in my entire life at making those unselfish runs. The Galaxy this year are 25th in expected goals per shot, and it basically all comes down to not the shots that the center forwards are generating, because they're still when they find a shot, it's a good shot. Preston Judd has been surprisingly good at that, and Joveljic to a lesser extent, and he's been a disappointment this year overall, but like he still finds good shots. But the rest of the attack is what has suffered. So what you're seeing from the Galaxy is a lot of possession and a lot of progress that ends up on the side of the box, and then those wingers either are pulling it back to the top of the box for like a long hopeful blast, or sometimes Tyler Boyd cuts in and paints the woodwork and bangs one home. And if you get lucky on either of those, then the Galaxy win. If you don't get lucky on those, the Galaxy are not generating the types of shots that leads to a sustained playoff push. So you're right, they look good in a lot of ways, and Tyler Boyd being on a bit of a heater is a good thing for the Galaxy, but they're not doing the things in the final third that they did last year that made them a top 3 team in the Western Conference, and honestly one of the most fun teams in the league to watch last year. They missed the hell out of Chicharito. What
do we attribute Dejan Joveljic's drop off to?
So I'm curious. It doesn't really matter, but if you could climb inside Greg Vanney's head for a second of like, he refused to start him because he thought it was a super sub. We all clamored for it because they were bad. Now he's the starter, and he has played, I think, like Greg Vanney thought he plays, which is like he doesn't connect to the game a ton. He doesn't really affect things. He only wants the ball in certain channels and certain areas. And if he doesn't get it there, he's not dangerous. Then once his confidence went, I think that's tough for a guy who's like number one skill set is being a finisher, that's the biggest.
Because you watched the match against St. Louis. He had 2 or 3 opportunities that are like sub Dejan Joveljic last year finishes that and is wheeling off to the corner to celebrate.
Yeah, but starter Dejan Joveljic has never.
Right.
And I think that's part of the issue. And it's not like he's bringing an element against the ball of counter pressing and funneling the defense where it's like what he said with being 25th. They're the same defense as last year is the problem. Like, it's not like they've improved in other places where they've gotten worse in the attack, and he's part of that. So that's their biggest issue. Like, you look at this game against LAFC. I mean, St. Louis scored twice against the run of play, and should have won that game. Those are opportunities LAFC creates. They're going to sit in. They're going to try and hit in transition. Those chances are going to be there. The mistakes happen in midfield for LA Galaxy in every game. And even if they don't, their inability to kill transition moments and pass off players correctly always lead to chances against them.
2 wins for the Galaxy, the last 2 this year. Open Cup, which is the Ricky game. And then I think a 1-0 win, I want to say, at Galaxy.
That was early on. I think that was during the Champions League.
Yeah, and there was a 3-2 win for LAFC early on in the season, I think also at Galaxy. So this is the second game at BMO this year and the 4th overall. Should be a good one.
Galaxy win this game. They are only 7 points behind LAFC with a game in hand.
It's insane.
The West makes no sense. I
No.
mean, we went through this on the last show. It's a nonsensical conference in so many ways. We did not pick games that we're most looking forward to, but still are looking forward to. Minnesota Sporting Kansas City. Pookie is back. Bongi is back. Reynoso. I think this is a match to let Kansas City have the ball and Minnesota play against it.
Mhm.
No doubt about it. And then Hudson River Derby. Is this the least juice the Hudson River Derby has ever had?
It's got to be the first time they're both out of the playoff spots when they face off. Because even in the past few years where the Red Bulls have made late runs into the playoffs, NYCFC's been...
they've been like the standard bearer for points earned
over a 4-year
average
span.
over whatever, yeah.
So this has to be, if not it has to be one of a few where they're both outside the playoff spots. It feels like less. They both struggle with their own identity a little bit more too, where it's always been this like philosophical thing and color thing, and like there were so many elements to the debate, and there's not a lot of, I think, characters in this matchup where you're like, oh, the history of what they've been through.
Tolkien might be the
he's the one.
Yeah, if Maxi was healthy, Maxi would be there as well.
Tolkien will earn a red card and then say, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree with you about identity, at least for the Red Bulls. Like the Red Bulls are still completely, committed to their
but
identity.
it doesn't feel like there's a swagger to it because they've struggled.
Like what they lack is quality.
Yeah.
Whereas I think NYCFC, they do have quality. What they don't have is the identity. If you look at that team, the vibes, we're going back to reading body language through the TV, but like they don't look great. They don't look bought in.
The Maxi Morales stuff is wild.
Yeah.
That was like this, oh my God, here's this savior that we didn't even think was on the table.
Feels familiar.
And then all of a sudden it pops in. You can't hurt me. I'm a Jets fan. You literally can't hurt me.
It's already been through the ringer.
Come after me. I don't even care.
But also with NYC,
Deja vu.
With NYC too, I just feel like it's been just kind of a crazy season, from the injuries to the turnover, players coming in, players getting injured, going out. Maxi's a perfect example. Santi comes in.
Even the Santi thing was dramatic.
It was weird.
The
James Sand thing, it was weird. Like waiting until the season started to make those types of moves.
Right.
Weird.
Is it weird? It's NYCFC.
Gabi Pereira sold.
Gabi Pereira being sold, right.
Yeah.
The beginning of the season with Tyus Magno, like playing striker or not, or does he want to play striker? No, Bakar comes in. He's been good, but just like there's no continuity. And I just feel like that's affected NYC just as much as anything else, just as much as not having an identity or anything else. With Red Bulls, yeah, it's their identity. We know that. They play the way they play. They're going to keep playing.
But you worked and covered Red Bulls. There was a thing of they'd play and like you talk to Red Bull staff or players and they'd be like, we're going to press the out of them. Like we're going to rock them off the field. An energy to it, which I don't feel anymore. Of like, yeah, we're going to try and press them. And if we create chances, we're going to win. Where it felt like they could not wait to get, that was their biggest stage from into the end of the Jesse Marsh years through Armis into their biggest stage every year was a playoff game and against NYCFC. And they could not wait for everyone to watch them play NYCFC off the field. And so there was like an energy to what they did, which I mean, you just don't feel that.
Is that down to sort of like the best laid plans for this club all just going completely sideways? Whether it be Lewis Morgan, record signing Dante Van Zier being a disappointment and having all the off-field stuff.
Luquinhas
as well. Luquinhas, that goes back a little further, but
Christian
never lived
Cáceres, who was like one of their most consistent players over a couple of years.
Gerhard Struber was supposed to be sort of the grand priest of young wolves and pressing, and
Carlos Coronel not
run
being,
off.
Right. Yeah. Carlos Coronel not being the keeper that we thought he was going to, he was on en route to be.
He was amazing the second half of 2021.
Incredible.
He was good last year. He has not been good this year.
I mean, to go back to the swagger, pressing has not historically, and Troy Lassane's in that organization doing this thing. I don't want to speak ill of him at all, but that doesn't seem like that was his identity. Whereas so many of the other coaches that took that project, that elevated this to we are literally going to punch through your face.
But I think that
was their thing.
But I think part of that was he came into a group that Struber had pushed it to its limit and it was unsuccessful. So there was nowhere for him to go in that direction.
That's fair.
And there's nowhere for him to add. Now, I get what you're saying, which is he was brought in sort of as oh, this person we think can take this DNA, fuse it with what they do, and change it a little. I thought we were actually going to talk about NYCFC here of if this year goes the way it's going and they finish 10th or 11th, I don't know what changes for them. They've already signed Fernandez. They brought in Bakar. Outside of being oh, the pieces will work after they've been together, it just...
Doesn't the coach change?
Is that enough?
I mean, I look at the talent on that roster. You could maybe have your pick of available. Give Dome a call. See if you can get him back to make these pieces work together, because it took him a while to cobble it all together. But on paper, even with Maxi hurt, on paper, this team is legit. No,
but not showing it. Neither of the Red Bulls. Their playoff streak.
I don't think either of these teams make the playoffs.
Definitely in jeopardy. Here was a question we didn't hit, but I want to throw it out there. Since he would have won the Shield, who finishes second if Cincy win it?
So I saw that. I skipped ahead. I read ahead in the test, and my initial reaction was the winner of Orlando versus Columbus this weekend. But I think the correct answer is the Union. The Union have... they're 2 points behind New England.
They have the game in hand
and have a game
and get Lucho at home. Or you get Lucho-less Cincy at home.
Yeah,
which,
and
that's a scheduling blessing.
And they have 5 home games left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's
9-1-2 at home.
Yeah,
right now,
and a pretty good 5-7-2 on the road. Not great, but pretty good.
And this matters. These things matter. Where you finish in the Shield standings, especially with the expanded CONCACAF Champions Cup, which I'm still sort of getting some muscle memory to. If you finish, I think it's going to be the next 3 spots probably. You will get a spot in the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
And the big thing everyone's chasing is St. Louis in the East. If you can finish higher on points, if you get to MLS Cup, you host MLS Cup.
Right.
With the way the points sit right now, St. Louis on 48, Orlando 47, Philly 46, New England 48.
You know, here's something funny. So Seattle had 41 points. If St. Louis didn't make MLS Cup, and basically 1 through 6 in the East would host, and Nashville would be a point away from doing so.
Yeah, that is wild.
I'm going to make one other point here. There is real incentive to finish second or third in the Eastern Conference so that you avoid either Cincinnati or Miami until the Eastern Conference final. I'm not even kidding. I'm not like I would want. Sure. And if I'm Cincinnati, like I'm pretty stoked about winning Supporter Shield. They're gonna win it. They're gonna have that first scene. I think they're going to face Leo Messi in the playoffs in that first round.
How brutal would that be, man? They finally won a trophy. They finally finished first after all those years winning the spoon, and their reward, facing Messi. Thanks, MLS.
Man, that building will be electric.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
Think about the march to the match for that game. Supporter Shield
we
winners
just taken another vacation.
I don't even know what you're talking about
going
right
to Cincinnati.
That's not a vacation. That's work. that is absolutely work. All right, let's dive into some of the news that I'm sure you've been following via The Athletic and on Twitter and from the Revs. Press conferences galore here. I'll just kind of run you through the timeline of events from. What is it? We record on Wednesdays, so Tuesday, September 12th. The Revs did not train yesterday. There was a meeting with the players and President Brian Bilello in the morning. Basically, all parties, as it has come out over the past 24 hours, were sort of like, hey, we're not going to train. We're going to make a mutual decision that we are not going to train. And this was after reportedly about 2 hours of meetings. The Revs have a press conference. Richie Williams is on that press conference. Sometime after that press conference, then there is a meeting with Kurt Analfo, who is currently the interim technical director, I believe, and players. Then, and I believe last night, is that correct? And you guys can correct me on the timeline. There's so much to go through here. Shalrie and Dave Vandenberg, I believe, then are mutually agreed that they will no longer be with the organization.
Ways.
Yes.
Yep.
And they were the assistant coaches along with Richie under Bruce Arena. Then it's announced that also Richie will be taking time off and will be reassigned somewhere within the organization. They're looking for that role, says Bilello today. And Clint Piet, the New England Revolution 2 manager, is now the new interim manager of the club. There was a press conference today with Bilello and Analfo. Bilello basically said, unfortunately for us, we've had to be in a little bit of a reactionary mode on a number of things here based on the timing of all these announcements and just sort of the chaos of that timeline yesterday with the players and the coaching staff and the front office. The future role for Richie is still being determined, but we do know PA will take over for the rest of the year, and Analfo reportedly will do so as well. But it just... There's only one thing for certain, that these players are going to have to go out there and protect their place at second in the Eastern Conference and try to do something that this organization has never done before, which is make a run to MLS Cup and win the thing. And they have the talent to do so, but they will do so under a cloud of uncertainty and under a cloud of truly it is chaos.
They're
within
trying
the organization.
The term is trying to build the plane while you fly it. They taking the plane apart and then rebuilding it while they're flying it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on the field. David and I did the preview for this match.
We are vlogging these previews.
We absolutely are.
Right.
David is a big Clint PA guy.
I am. I've covered Revs 2 a little bit in MLS Next Pro. They're second in the league. They're top 10 in every possession stat, and that's not something you say about the Revs in MLS. So I do think there could be a level of it's tough to say on the fly at this point of the season, but that they can control games a little bit more than what we see in MLS, which is very like, we can hit you direct, we can score at any moment, but we don't really dictate the way the game is played. It's been an issue this year. I think we talked on the last show about their defensive problems, which is they have defensive frailties. They don't stop you from having ball in the areas.
The Revs put both fullbacks forward. Like that is the thing, and it can be overwhelming when it works. And from what you said, Revs 2 are not like that. They left back actually inverts and comes into midfield to get that either a 2-3 shape or a 3-2-2-3 shape. And that is just like basic sound defensive structure, defense first, 1-0 wins games, that type of approach.
Yeah. And so it could be interesting. The other thing about this team, and I assume we're going to talk about where we go from here, is they are second in the Eastern Conference. They have built an academy that has never existed in New England on any level.
By the way, Thomas Vachlik just had his visa approved, so he could be in the lineup this weekend.
They are second in MLS Next Pro, and they're second in the league, coming 2 years off winning Supporter Shield, setting the points record. They have sold at a borderline record high level in MLS, and they've replaced those players almost seamlessly, now consistently over the last 3 years. From a soccer point of view, they are going in the right direction. So from a soccer point of view, you want to keep the train on the tracks. Clearly, from a culture point of view, there's other things you have to deal with. I think that's where it's interesting that Clint Pia gets the opportunity to step in here. Someone who's been around, but can give you sort of a fresh space to work in, and I think has some other ideas to help continue to develop things forward. And I wouldn't be shocked if this is an interim manager that's working now, where if they make a deep run, could become
he
full-time.
has the profile of someone who honestly has earned a shot at a top job
and has been talked
in
about
MLS.
in interview for other teams besides the Revs over the last year.
I don't know him, but from everything I've heard, easy guy to root for.
MLS original, DC United teams, those teams from 96 to 98. He played 43 games for those teams, had a little bit more time in MLS and also with the Charleston Battery, but then went into coaching and has been coaching since 03 from the college level, Georgetown Hoyas, and then through sort of that area of the country as far as the NCAA side goes before he was the head coach of the Richmond Spiders. Yes. Another vacation I took this year to Richmond, just so you know. Just throwing it out there.
No, I'm not shocked.
Then has been with the Revs since 2020. So, where from here? Where from here? Because,
the answer to that right now is to the playoffs and see what happens in the playoffs and then reassess after the season. Because there are more moving pieces here than I think we are privy to. We only know what's been reported in The Athletic. I think when you're on 48 points, second in the Eastern Conference, tied for second in the Shield race, you don't want to have to make, absolutely major changes. Obviously, their hands were forced here, but you want to keep some level of continuity. So Clint Pia it is. I think Chris Tierney is still in the front office as well. Kurt Adolfo still in the front office as well. So it's like, okay, let's roll it out. And then if you're Ryan Bolello at the end of the season, you probably have some more assessments to make.
And the big thing about the playoff run is Carlos Gil's 30. Yeah. Like that's a guy who will win you every game. He'll be arguably the best player on the field. Now arguable because Messi's in the league. But Andrew Farrell's on the back end. Omar Gonzalez starts on this team. Even Vashlet, I don't know how long that's for. This is a win now team. There's huge potential for the future too if you manage some of these things correctly. But this was built as a win now team, and I think the hope would be the players rally around that, which is we have an opportunity. We know that we're good enough. There might even be less pressure on them going into the postseason because there's less expectations versus 2021 when it was you've got this huge buy.
Or bust,
how do you figure out how to stay who you are? And then they lost. Carlos Gil, from everything we've seen, he feels like that type of guy. He's fiery. I think he steps out and speaks for this team, which is going to be big over the next few weeks of there's a ton of questions about stuff that's happening that's not focused on the game. I think Carlos Gil is one of those guys who can take that pressure on himself. He can continue to perform. He can help the team perform behind. And this is a fairly veteran group. Losing Brandon Bai is huge.
But that might make it easier to play the way PA wants to play.
Yeah, they might be able to be a little bit
all of a
safer.
sudden you don't have two fullbacks whose probably strength is bombing.
Yep. Yeah. But you still have one in DeJuan Jones that could still do that job for you.
And certainly could tuck inside if that's what you were asking him. I mean, he's right-footed.
But Polster as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a deeper team probably than it was 2 years ago. Maybe less match winners because they don't have Buksa.
And they don't have Petrovic.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Turner.
Bo's not in the team right now? He's hurt?
He's
yeah.
hurt.
He's been hurt, yeah.
Chancalay, though.
Chanclay's been good. How much could they use Dylan Pereiro right now?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
having him on this team would really help things out moving forward. But I think it's what you said too. I think this all now falls on Carlos heel, which, if you're a Revs fan, you're pretty happy about the fact that you can. All right, things are kind of chaos, things are brewing, everything's going kind of crazy. You trust that guy to do what needs to be done and to help push this team forward. The issue is, do they have enough around? The answer is yes, but it's a matter of, can they still perform at that level with everything that's gone on?
I want to push it quickly. Look, we don't have that much information, and it's all TBD to the offseason for this Revs team. I think there's a big question that the organization and ownership is going to have to answer, which is, do they want to stick with sort of the way that they've done things for a long time, which is Americans, U.S. soccer, Mike Burns for eons, Brad Friedel, familiar faces, running things, making the decisions. Bruce Arena obviously was that as well. Do you stick with that formula, or do you think about doing what, say, like an Austin FC just did with Rodolfo Barrero, and just say, hey, we're
Burrell.
I don't know why I said Barrero.
Because we were talking about
Dylan. Yeah. And go a different direction and sort of say, you know what, we do need a little bit of it. We need different ideas. We like new ideas. Somebody who is very plugged into sort of the way international academies have worked, because our academy is starting to come up, and the integration between our second team and our first team is getting more intimate. Like, it's a big question mark, and only the Revs are going to be able to answer that. But I'm very, very curious to see where this club goes, because on the field, they've been very good. Off the field, if they could get a stadium built, they could be one of the shining
They'll be St. Louis
lights of MLS clubs. And they're not a bad club now. They just they don't have what so many other clubs have in terms of a facility.
I think it's really interesting. I think the idea you bring up is interesting as well, of like, how do you get to the next step? I think there's elements for this club. I just look at like Columbus, all the pieces they brought from Toronto that have come to Columbus that have helped build what they've built. And I look at that and say, like, if you're the Revs, why you're not going to go and look at the people under Tim Bezbatchenko and say, like, can you do that with us? Right? Can you help us turn into producing these players coming through and finding in their prime?
In the same way Cincinnati
did with Philly, which now it's, Philly, Chris Albright left. I don't know that anyone feels like the person in Philly next up is ready. I think Columbus is now one of those. Garth has now been moved out. Will Kuntz moved. Those next people up, I think Columbus has a few people that are going to be high on that list. If you don't go with someone international, of like, what has worked in MLS and can get us from here to the next step.
That's gonna be interesting. Going to be interesting, and no more interesting than for the players in the locker room right now, navigating all of this. All right, let's do squad pick time. But before that, Anders has put in the Golden Boot draft update. Before I read that off, and it's currently blacked out right now, so none of you can see what it says. Here are some notes. He says the analysts very concerned about Team Tom Kalin.
Yes.
Hani is slowed down.
Yes.
Vasquez never got going. Ferreira and Bouanga have dropped off. Dante Van Zier,
keep swimming.
Sebas Ferreira, Zelarayan, Brenner, all transferred out. Matt's nightmare year continues.
Mm-hmm.
His tank for Messi. His tank, maybe. I don't know. We haven't seen the numbers here.
I'm the real winner from this year.
Sergio Cordova sold.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Doyle actually gets 2% of
I'm just
those
popping
moves.
bottles the rest of the season. I got Messi in the keeper league. Let's go.
Oh my
This is must win this year. Like, I need to get the trophy in this year because he's going to win.
That's fair. All right, let's see what we got going here. I believe these are in reverse order. Otherwise, they're in no order.
Because
So
we celebrate.
Yeah, we'll see. Matt has 57 goals and 23 assists.
Don't care.
Fair
for next year.
Fair. Let's see. Who's next? I have 63 goals and 30 assists. So
Do you have
see what that
Messi?
falls. I don't
I have
know.
57 goals and 23 assists and Messi.
That's true. Dave, 69 goals. Very nice. So you're
I'm at least second.
You've got a chance here. I think I'm out 70. You're 4 goals back, 73 goals.
I told you from
got a
day
chance.
one. I
Wait a
have
minute.
confidence in my group.
Read off the two teams now because
Okay.
I'm curious.
Team Tom Kalin, Hani, Brandon Vasquez, Jesus Ferreira, Denny Bouanga, Dante Van Zier, Sebastian Ferreira. That's an offer.
Are the
on
other
both
guys
sides.
just not in the league?
Zelarayan out. Facundo Torres, that's a good one. Brenner out. Martino Ojeda suckered them into that one. And Shaqiri.
I know. So their top 4 is really good.
Yeah.
Right. And like, it wouldn't shock me if all 4 of those guys got on a heater to end the season.
Yes.
Do we have who was their bonus pick? We all had a bonus pick. Do we remember?
We just did.
I had Surridge, which
I remember mine.
I think I took Chicho.
Mine was Messi.
Yeah.
Mine was Messi.
I think I took Chicho Arango.
Anders, if you remember this, let me know. So, Dave, your team is Gazdag, Cucho Hernandez. That looks good.
It's coming.
Bernadeschi, Rui Diaz. You need.
I think
him to
Rui
find
Diaz
it.
is going to start scoring goals. He should not be defending on the near post late in a qualifier against Brazil, though. That should not be his thing.
Julian Carranza. So big
That's
weekend
good.
for you here. Zardes. Lewis Morgan is your
That's
over.
rough.
Karol Swiderski, Jordan Morris, Johnny Russell, Derek Etienne. No goals this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been tough.
And
And,
I-
he got buried down the list
Right.
of players. So those are my two.
Anders, figure out who the
bonuses.
bonus picks are.
As we go
'Cause
through
I'm
our-
telling you, I think I like David's team better down the stretch here.
Yeah.
I do
After
too.
Tom has been a nightmare
And I've-
in the group
And
chat
I've
all
just been
season.
quietly
A
sitting there with
nightmare.
confidence.
As Tom would be.
Yeah.
The top 4 for Tom and Kalen could push them over the
Don't
top.
let Kalen escape this. He's a part of this
Kalen's
team as
involved.
well.
The top 4 I think could push them, but if any of those guys, I feel like even if just one of those guys goes kind of stale here at the end of the season, I think Goss has enough to push.
You know what,
to push them.
Tom? We shouldn't be saying this though. Tom's a Liverpool fan. He would never watch a title slip away from his team in the last.
Is it any
stretch of the
surprise that he
season.
shares a
This
team with
does
reference?
not slip.
He can't walk alone. We know that.
Oh man.
Let's do our squad picks. Remember, go to MLSsquadpick.com to play, or we'll tweet out the link.
Here's
You can
my
just go.
thing. I think Karol Swiderski is going to carry me down the stretch.
I love
I
it.
think he's going to get on a heater, carry
Anders
Charlotte
believes
towards a
that as
playoff
well.
spot.
I
Yeah.
know Anders is a big Karol Swiderski.
Let's go,
believer.
Carol. Let's go.
Oh no. Florida called in a recount, says Anders.
Uh-oh.
Give us the updated totals and look.
Because he didn't add the extra guys.
Messi for Doyle, Surridge for me, Chicho for Gus. These are live updates. Diego Rossi for
one goal.
Kalen.
Only one goal.
So you're experiencing all
So am
of
I
this drama
closer?
as we do.
Yeah, am I closer than this
So
was?
and you had Chicho. I don't
Yeah.
think he
Chicho's
scored
got 3.
But has
The
he,
problem
but
is-
you don't get the ones before. You only get
Yeah,
since
I
you
only-
drafted him.
we only
That's
got it
complicated.
since we did the draft. Oh, you
We'll-
did
we'll
that.
get it for
Well,
you.
it didn't matter for you
Man.
because that was all legal.
Anyway, go to MLSsquadpick.com to play, or we'll tweet out the link. Join our league.
Doyle is the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie and Katie on the bench for the year, being like, we're going to win 4 titles next year. Just wait for us.
I'm keeping Willie. I got it next year
Yeah.
just because.
Nice. Just got to keep the crew together.
Well, just degree of difficulty. You know, you got to make. We have Messi. You got to tie at least one hand behind your back, right? Join the official Extra Time League for Squad Pick. Use the code EXTRA. Extra has to be all caps if you don't use the Join League. So extra all caps. And Tom, like if Tom said it, extra. You pick 5 players. If they all score on the same match day, you win. You can win a free jersey, $160 gift card to MLS store, so you could spend that on other things if you wanted. Each round, you get 1 entry for 10 grand, a grand prize at the end of the season. I believe you don't have to get anything right to get the 10 grand.
I'm not going to lie. I think I do this read better. I think you should hand it back to me for the
Okay,
future.
that's fine. Future read.
I was just sitting there being
That's
like,
my first
he's
time.
butchering my read.
That's my first time.
Yeah.
During the read, you were yelling out the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
You disrupted the
If
read.
you can't perform under
Imagine-
pressure in high moments.
Imagine comparing Messi to the Brooklyn Nets.
KD, man.
Could
KD.
not be. It could not
That
be.
is just
more
KD's
off.
one of the
That is
greatest.
just a
It's
bitter
insulting.
Knicks fan. By the way, you know who the Sounders? I was thinking about this. You know who the Sounders remind me of? Miami Heat.
Why is that?
Because
There's,
Miami
like, the
Heat
culture.
were terrible
Yeah.
last year in the regular season. Absolutely terrible. Went to the postseason. Everybody writing them off. Team of veterans who've been there before, and just a meat grinder.
Who's
in the
Jimmy?
postseason.
Also,
Nico?
the year before is the same, which wasn't Seattle first in the West and lost to RSL?
in 21.
Yeah,
I
and
think so.
didn't Miami get first 2 years ago?
And yeah, when they lost in the conference finals to the Celtics when they were the number
There you
1
go.
seed. They lost Game 7 at home.
there you go, boom.
Next time on the Overtime Podcast.
I mean-
we'll get into that.
NBA season's almost here.
You can tell. You
All
can
right,
tell. Yeah.
everybody gets a
Diva.
pick. Everybody gets a pick. Then we'll try to come together and choose one. Doyle, who is your put it in the books squad pick? Gonna score a goal pick.
Well,
I've said-
great Howie Rose reference.
I've said the name Lionel Messi 15 times already on this podcast. I will say it again.
That's fair. That's fair. Who you got, Dave?
Last time we picked Messi, he didn't score. I wasn't ready for this, so you go to someone
Messi's
else
only got
first.
1 goal in his last 4 MLS games, by the way. Or what last 4 games for Miami across all competitions.
I will go Julian Carranza against Cincinnati.
Okay. All right.
Andrew?
You want me to go again?
Giacomo Veroni
I love it.
against the Colorado Rapids. I got a message from my friend who is a Rapids season ticket holder, and there are some people on Facebook within that fan group that are suggesting everywhere wear black and walk out in the 20th minute. So that's how things are going for Rapids fans right now.
Yikes.
Yeah, because we didn't discuss the fact they haven't played a game yet without Robin Fraser. So they've also let their manager go. This is their first time. I'm going to go with Brian White on the road in Toronto.
Such a goss pick.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
such a goss pick.
You got to
All
play
right.
the numbers.
We gotta all come together to make another choice. Who's it gonna be?
We have to make a fifth choice.
A fifth choice.
I feel like a
Gotta go home
Minnesota
team, I feel.
person against KC, like a Pookie or
Bongi time?
Reynoso.
Bongi time.
Or Bongi. Yeah, if
I'll say
you
Bongi.
feel like he's
Yeah.
back.
I'll vote Bongi.
I also don't think a Buonga type person against LA Galaxy is a bad pick either.
I feel like Blanco's one that we would always have picked for this, but now we're like, I don't know.
Because I said he's not scoring, and then I went and looked, and he like still is scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having assists in every other game. Just feels different. you know?
Make your choice, Dave. I feel like you've
I
guided
pick
us.
it. All right, I'll go with Bongi or Pookie. Which one?
Bongi.
Bongi.
Bongi it is. There's our 5.
Domino.
Bingo.
Caitlin
All right.
Carr would have voted for Bongi
Yeah.
if he was here.
He
so
would
there
have.
we go.
He would
But
have.
didn't pick him for his team.
Yeah. Wow.
The midway point of the season.
Rough.
Yeah.
All right, here is I believe I have an update here. Oh, it has tightened. It has tightened.
Oh, boy.
74 goals for Tom and Kalen, 72 goals for Dave. And
Dave's going to win this.
I don't believe I'm close enough to be really a part of this conversation, so that's our race. I'm here for the trophy.
What am I on?
draft.
I'm on like
Doesn't
58.
matter. Nobody cares.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, nobody cares.
You got to understand how much we're all rooting against Tom here.
Yes.
Like there's solidarity with David, not because we like David.
Nope.
It's because group chat Tom Bogert
Oh,
is evil.
imagine
The
spending
menace.
a year of Tom lording over us with this.
Yeah.
Just
it
imagine.
can't happen.
No.
No,
It can't happen.
I'm the people's champ.
Tom is also the type of person who's happier when he's miserable. So he will enjoy losing this.
Well,
on someone.
I'm
Cheers, Tom.
I've never had something win, so I don't know what I will do.
Yeah. Well, so this is just
Tom's
an
a
experiment.
Giants fan.
Yeah, this is an experiment. All right, let's get into a little bit of awards season. Robert Shearer got us started, and I was thinking about this because of Houston-St. Louis, which is a great match in the West this weekend, at Houston especially. Robert says, what's the criteria for the Extra Time Peeps for goalkeeper of the year? Does it need to be the goalkeeper for the first-place team in the conference? What metrics do you consider? What intangibles might you think about? I've heard that Roman Berkey is front runner for goalkeeper of the year. I see that Willis, Fry, and Gallese have all given up fewer goals, though, and have lower goals allowed per game. But then I see that American Soccer Analysis, this is Robert's a smart man, has Berkey with superior goals plus and goal minus expected goal stats. So what to consider? And also, could we consider Georgi Petrovic, even though he's gone and will have many fewer games played than everyone else? Who's our goalkeeper of the year, our all-state goalkeeper of the year?
Roman Berkey.
I will also cast a vote for Roman Berkey.
I voted Petrovic last year. I basically have a 2,000 minutes as the cutoff in my head for how much of the season do you need to have played.
What's he at?
Berkey,
No, Petrovic.
Petrovic, I'm not sure he's at 2,000 minutes this year, but even so, Berkey would get it. He's in like the metric I pay most attention to is goals minus expected goals.
1980.
1980.
Petrovic.
Wow.
Yeah. So you got lucky.
Yeah.
He said that line.
Yeah, right.
He did. He had 1890 last year.
Okay. Wow. Well, maybe I shouldn't have voted for him. Berkey's been outstanding. He's kept that team in games with his shot stopping, and that is the thing I consider first and by miles in terms of a goalkeeper's contribution. But then he's also a veteran who has organized that back line well, even when the pieces have had to change. And, the one veteran they brought in has not played a ton on that back line. So I think more of the organization, I say one European veteran they've brought in. Tim Parker has obviously been rejuvenated. He's a veteran, but like
Joachim Nielsen is the other who
Joachim
just
Nielsen.
returned.
Thank you. I was hoping you would save me with that. So I think Berkey's had to do more in terms of organizing, and St. Louis, for how frenetic they are, have not looked disorganized at all this year. So I think Berkey is a big part of that. And then it's like, how good is the team? The team's very good. That matters too. I don't look at save percentage. I don't look at shutouts. I don't look at even total goals allowed, because we know some teams play more open than other teams. I look at goals allowed minus expected goals allowed, and post shot saves, like stuff like that. The American Soccer Analysis website is invaluable for that stuff, and by all those metrics, it's Roman Berkey's by a mile.
Opta Provision has him at 9.9 goals prevented. Nobody is within 3 goals of that. Daniel is the other one that's second, and he's only got 1,400 minutes, which tells you just how special he has been. Berkey's at about 0.36 per 90 goals prevented. That is the best among everyday starters. Daniel is just a tad better than he is. Tim Melia actually is a little bit better, but only 900 minutes played. So that's interesting.
Yeah. No,
Berkey, and Thomas Asal prevented 1.41 goals in his lone 90 minutes of the year.
Berkey, I think, is sort of the runaway on this one. You add in like passing, he's been pretty successful of what they need in their model, and playing off his line. It's not as much as some of the other goalkeepers in high pressing teams, Tyler Miller being the top, Cornell being up there, but it's still top 5, and he still does a job for them in those moments. So Berkey's the obvious one. I think Berkey's now bordering into MVP voting.
Yeah,
of like
I have him second in my MVP.
Oh, wow. Right now. Let's go there. Let's go. Landon Donovan, MLS MVP. Who are the 3 finalists?
I would say Doyle. One of Doyle's would be Roman Berkey.
Yeah, Roman Berkey is one of the 3 finalists. Lucho's the
Tony
the
Miola stuff.
Lucho's the winner.
Lucho's the winner.
Yeah, I don't think there's.
Yeah, I or Messi, said Anders, who vehemently argued this with us.
Yeah. Does anybody want to make Anders' case for Messi on the show? I'll say the case against Messi is like, how much value did you add cumulatively over the course of the year?
It's just that you weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he the most valuable player to his team? Yeah, probably. But this is a 2023 award, and that's the argument that we were having.
To his team, for sure.
To his team, for sure. But for the season.
Not for sure. Is he the best player in MLS? Yes. Is he the most valuable to his team? Maybe not, because other people might be more valuable to their team.
Okay.
I was like, well, yes, on Miami.
When I said most valuable player to his team,
but Lucho might be more valuable to Cincy.
Sorry, I was fully talking about Inter Miami.
Sorry, my bad.
No, but I
we were on the same. We were on the same.
It was very.
He's the MVP of Inter Miami.
Of Inter Miami, yeah, without a doubt. But I just, if it's a 2023 award and we're talking the beginning of this MLS season to now, I don't think there's an argument that Lucho Acosta has to be.
I completely agree. It's like, how many points did you add to your team over the course of the year? Messi's going to have 10 chances to deliver points for his team, right? Because I think they're 12 games total, but he's going to end up missing 2 of them. He missed one this past week.
At least the one that he missed.
At least one. So maybe 11 chances, 33 points. If he contributes X amount to that, like, that's huge. We'll talk about him for other awards here in a minute, but Lucho Acosta is going to play in 32 games, I think, this season, and he was probably the best player on the field for 18 of those already, for a team that is winning the Supporters' Shield race by now a mile, and is doing so on the back of 1-goal wins in which Lucho Acosta was the best. That is the definition of the most valuable player.
Go back and think about a bunch of these games, watch the highlights. We just talked about the Vancouver one earlier in the show, where it was like Cincinnati needed something. It was always Lucho that delivered it.
And it was early in the year, it was what's going on with Brenner, so didn't have a replacement. No one else was scoring. Vasquez hasn't really scored. And then now it's the attack, I think, has flowed a little bit better. Barrial's been very good, but then
Barrial plays on the left side where Lucho likes to hang out.
And then it's been Lucho as a finisher. If it's not Lucho as a creator, he's done things that are special.
He also drops deep and helps create. If you look at those big left to right switches, he will drop deep on the left side, as you said, hanging out with Barrial. Lucho gets on his foot, cuts back, and then it's a big switch to the right fullback or right wing back, pushing up. He's awesome.
He's awesome. Who are the other 2 finalists? I'll try to predict what you'd see on the ballot.
You'll see Hani Mukhtar and you'll see Leo Messi.
I think Carlos Heel is in the conversation.
I was going to say he has to be in the conversation. I don't know if he makes the ballot, but I feel like you can argue that he's... Oh, Ryan Gauld.
He's still an elite chance creator. Heel is.
No offense, Gauld has no chance. But I'm saying that only, not on merits. I'm saying that on what I know about
on merit, he should be there. Thiago Almada.
Yeah, I think Almada has a better chance than Gauld by by far to be a finalist.
If they get a home playoff game, my assumption will be Christian Espinoza will carry them there in the attack. All of his numbers are in the conversation with the people you guys are talking about. He, again, will not get any votes from anyone.
Look, the other thing we know about MVP and all award voting is that it is a sort of what have you done for me lately situation. That's always how it works out. And people remember vividly what happened the 2 or 3 weeks, the month around voting, where those teams are in the standings, what their narrative is, how that narrative has changed because of that player. So I would say that a lot of that's still up for grabs. If Leo Messi is doing still the same Leo Messi things, every indication I have in my instincts about following this for 15 years says that he'll be a finalist.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think he should be.
I agree.
By any rational measure of what most valuable player actually means.
But it
means different things.
Though.
It is football heritage.
Ache we should mention.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I think Ache is on a list of guys in the Western Conference, which is if their team makes a run to like
Alan Pulido.
Reynoso.
Yep.
Buwanga.
Well, I wouldn't put Reynoso in that conversation for the same reason that
for the
Messi.
same Messi.
Yeah. Comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
Where Wiebe's doing his thing. He's just listing like 25
Yeah,
players.
no. Let's go to Defender of the Year. Dave, take that over for us. We assigned out a couple of these we thought were interesting in the interests of time. You got okay.
I don't know. You paused randomly.
Yeah, you need to give me your shoe-in Defender of the Year. You know there's a front runner here. And
yeah, this was a tough one this year, actually. There's not as much of an obvious one. And I think in the past there have been obvious ones, and Walker Zimmerman's one anyway, so maybe that doesn't matter.
True.
I think Matt Miazga is the front runner right now. Cincinnati have one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the league. They're going to win Supporters Shield. They might set a record. He, I think, is the obvious difference maker from the past. Now, the pieces around him are really good. When he's been out, they've still been good. But Celentano's numbers aren't in the Goalkeeper of the Year conversation. And so I think Miazga is the obvious winner. And then outside of that, it's tough. There's not a ton of like smack you in the face names. The Philly guys, I think, are going to get mentioned again because Philly's still good, and people both. I enjoy watching Jakob Glesnes and Jack Elliott, and they're still successful. Orlando and Robin Janssen is a big one, which is Orlando's been one of the best defenses in the league. He is an elite ball playing center back as well. I think for people looking and voting, Antonio Carlos will pull a little bit of that vote because he's been considered one of the better center backs in MLS over the last few years. Gallese is a big name as well. So I think he'll struggle. Rodriguez, statistically, is like way up there for San Jose. I don't know if that should count. And then the 3 that were on good defenses that I don't think will get the votes as individuals, but I think should be in this are Nkosi Tafari with Dallas, who are the best defense in the West. Ranko Veselinovic, who's been phenomenal his entire time in MLS, and Vancouver could finish top 3 in the West, and he's been a key part too, especially now as the wingbacks go even higher, of keeping that back line together. And then Sean Nealis is the most consistent starter on the best defense in Major League Soccer.
Oh, by the way, I don't think we mentioned this. Sean Nealis and Troy Lesesne are actually suspended for the Hudson River Derby. So your best center back and your manager, which is...
Just so you know, the Red Bulls aren't the best defense in Major League Soccer.
Nashville
they've
is?
33 goals allowed. Nashville have allowed 27.
Yeah, Nashville was a tough one.
I always, because defensive midfielders never get any love other than on this show. What if you open Defender of the Year up to D-Mid?
If you opened it up to D-Mid, the first 7 votes would be for D-Mids, I think, this year.
Yeah.
When you look at Nwobodo and Kubas,
Jose
Martinez has to be. I mean, I feel like the award could be named after Jose Martinez if it was DMs were involved.
Yeah, it is. That would be easier, I think, this year than finding a specific defender.
I think Miazga would be a worthy winner this year.
The other thing to throw in there is we've talked about Kai Wagner in the past. There's not someone who's putting up Kai Wagner numbers as an attacker in defense. Alvaro Barreal would be in that convo.
But he's a wingback, not a fullback.
Almost a winger at this point,
right?
I feel like.
Which makes it tough. Gressel barely played as a wingback, even. He was a center mid.
Mids just no award love. They have no chance.
But the one that Doyle reminded me of that I want to throw out there is Steven Moreira.
Yeah.
He has been influential in both phases of the game for Columbus. He is the only consistent starter across the Columbus back 5. Everyone else has been in and out and in and out. He has pretty much played exclusively right center back. They are not a lockdown defense, but in their game model, he is as important.
His ability
as
to
anyone.
move the ball not just passing, but like off the dribble. Because it's the De Zerbi thing with Brighton. Like, that's how Nancy wants his team to play. He wants them to invite pressure, and once they invite that pressure and like, okay, we're going to put our foot on the ball until you come to us, then he, like, it's not just like, it's a necessity that his center backs have to be able to beat that first line of the press with the ball on their feet. And Moreira has been awesome at that this year.
Give me your young player of the year, Doyle. This is a player that is...
Thiago Almada is going to win it.
Yeah, 22, not 22 and under, though 22 under 22 will come. But you can be 22. You have to be an 2001 born.
Correct. So Jesus Ferreira is like 7 days too old to win this. So it's 2001 born or later. Thiago Almada will win this in a walk, maybe unanimously. I think like Berkey, it shouldn't be close. That said, Aiden Morris... very good season for a very good team, and not just a very good season, but he's advanced as a player, and I like to see that. Gerson Mosquera, the center back for FC Cincinnati, big part of that, like a regular starter when he's healthy for that back line. And then Wiebe went buck wild in the pre-show.
I actually deleted a lot of these. You've only got 3 to work with.
Chris Brady, Brian Gutierrez, John Tolkien, just 3 of the names Wiebe came up with. He came up with one that was absurd, and I don't remember what it was.
It wasn't McGlynn. It was
McGlynn. He was like, "Oh, Jack McGlynn."
Yes, it was McGlynn.
And it's like McGlynn's played fewer than 1,000
Yeah, I think
minutes.
he's got like
His
8
numbers
starts.
aren't great.
I'm surprised Buck didn't get on this list for you.
Oh, good point. He hasn't played enough. Good
But
point.
it should be Almada. Almada, to be clear, is eligible for this. He is not eligible for 22 under 22 because, again, my 22 under 22 shirt is answering a lot of questions raised already. You know, I butchered that.
Well, your MLS Young Player of the
raising
Year
a lot of
t-shirt-
questions already answered. By
Almost there. Almost.
Your MLS Young Player of the Year T-shirt is not answering any
No,
of those
it's
questions.
not.
MLS Newcomer of the Year. I took this one on. Your winner. Zero debate. Lionel Messi.
Do you have to rank a top 3 in this one? Is this one of the categories where you vote for one person, or do you vote for
I
3?
think you usually get 2.
Got it.
I don't know. I should know these.
It'd be wild
I've
if
done
you
it too many
didn't and
times.
anyone else got a vote.
Yeah, Messi is the winner. I don't think there's any doubt that that is going to be the case. Then I had Roman Berkey in here. It's not been a bumper crop of newcomers, I wouldn't say. You guys could argue with me if you disagree. Then I had, and I hit it on here, BD, Big Dunk. The college player does not get the respect that they used to with their own award. I would argue that Duncan Maguire has been one of the 3 best newcomers of the year in Major League Soccer.
I think we did this last time. Newcomer means you have to have never played in the league or you're coming into the league.
Have
Never played in the
So
league
Grasso
before.
can't be on this.
Correct. I don't think he would count.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2024 MLS MVP finalist Evander could be in this conversation.
Oh, darn it.
So that's one.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Feeling a lot of confidence right now. Everyone's rooting for me.
Yeah. No, yeah, you know.
But there aren't a ton of obvious ones.
There aren't. I was a little bit surprised going through it, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to make the
Like
big dunk
even
call.
on St. Louis, most of their guys
Leuven could have Leuven would
for
have
sure.
a shout here. And I read a quote from Klaus that was interesting that he was like, I came back and I felt low on confidence. Good thing I got that goal. And I was like, well, that's kind of crazy. I mean, I know you've been hurt, but it's interesting to hear him say that. He would have had a chance.
But like when you look at the teams that have gotten better this year, it's like RSL doesn't have anyone in that conversation. Houston doesn't have anyone in that conversation. Vancouver doesn't have anyone because they're all pieces that have been around that have just gotten
Evolved.
better or moved teams.
Yeah.
Columbus doesn't have anyone.
A lot of summer moves, and then they don't have enough time to, make that impact. Capetti was one that you would have thought could have, but has been hurt.
Has not.
For large stretches, and then has not when he was also playing. Christian Ramirez is not a newcomer. I started that, and then I was like, oh, but we've already established this rule.
Yeah.
Anyway, Siggy Schmidt, Coach of the Year. Stefano, what do you got?
I think it has to be Pat Noonan. I don't think there's
Not to me.
no, you know at all. That's
I
interesting.
mean, I love Pat Noonan, but go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead. I mean, I have Pat Noonan as the winner. I think the job that Bradley Carnell has done has been incredible. With a third finalist, I was between Pareja, but I took Wilfred Nancy just because I love that team. I love watching them, and him for him to come in first year and just yes, he had some pieces and brought some pieces in, but just to make that team play the way they've played, they've been super fun to watch. But for me, I mean, it's Pat Noonan. I mean, just from where they were, obviously make the playoffs last year, get that one win, to them now become Supporter Shield likely winners, I feel like he has to be up there.
Winning the Shield, do they have to set a points record, or is winning the Shield enough?
I think for Cincinnati, I think winning the Shield's enough in my opinion.
I think I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's Carnell.
Okay.
It's an expansion team in first place in the Western Conference, in second place in the Shield race. And they did it without Klaus for half the year. Berkey's been great. Leuven's been great. They did it without Nielsen for basically the entire year. We've seen him get more out of good young players who were cast-offs. Nicholas Gioacchini, Samuel Adeniran, Indy Vasilev, like Jared Stroud. He's checked every box. I think Pat Noonan has done a phenomenal job, and I think that if you were to do a draft of like which coach you would pick to lead your team, he might go first overall. It wouldn't be a travesty if he...
Tell me more about this draft.
Wiebe's got winter content lined up. But what Bradley Carnell has done this, like Pat Noonan took a team that was really good last year, and like last year he could have won Coach of the Year. Took a team that was really good last year, and like they made the natural progression to being excellent this year. I think we all had, since he pegged his Shield among the Shield favorites this year. What Bradley Carnell has St. Louis doing just overall and in terms of developing the talent there, none of us had them doing that.
I think he just convinced me to switch my pick.
Yeah.
After
Don't
what he
let
just
him
said.
do
It's
that.
true
Don't
though.
let him
No,
do that.
but it's true what he said, because I feel like Noonan, the time to win this award was probably last year for Noonan.
Yeah.
You're right. We expected Cincinnati to be better. Did we expect them to be where they're at? No. So I didn't think anybody expected them to be as up at the Shield at the
But
beginning.
this is
of the
where the
season.
last whatever it is, the recency bias will come into play.
Right, exactly.
If St. Louis don't have form the rest of the way, some of the shine will wear off. If Cincinnati find theirs again or hit that next gear, that will determine the vote. But I do think it's a 2-horse race unless Columbus Crew don't lose.
Yeah. If Columbus win out,
Nancy is just Nancy. If I was doing my draft,
he would go number
would
one.
probably take.
Yeah.
Did he win? He didn't win last year.
No,
which was
Jim
crazy.
Curtin, Jim Curtin
Jim
won.
did.
Jim
Because
won and said Nancy would have gotten my vote.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a
Yeah.
daily show. We talked about it for 3 weeks, and everyone had an opinion.
Yeah.
And
Can I throw a question at you? St. Jimmy on Twitter, typical for a St. Louis fan. All for City need 10 points to set the record for an expansion team. What are their chances of getting there? And if they do, would you guys, regardless if they do, would you guys bet on them making noise in the playoffs and making a deep run? St. Louis's schedule: at Houston, LAFC, at Minnesota, Sporting Kansas City, at Vancouver, Seattle. 10 points in there, 3 wins
That's
and
not
a
an easy.
draw.
That's not an easy schedule.
There's no guarantee they get that, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they
No.
probably end. I
think
would take
7
under.
points.
Yeah.
I think 7 points would be a good run in there of like going on the road to teams that have been good. You're also looking at teams that are like in must-win situations, which maybe you're not as well, which sort of brings me back to what I was going to bring up, which was like, we had Atlanta and LAFC come in back-to-back years and rechange how we thought about expansion teams. And then Nashville followed that up, I think, and be successful. The last 4 have not been successful until St. Louis. So I will be interested where they finish, whether this is more of a Nashville overall season or if this is an Atlanta United. Because I think it's fair then to say, yeah, they're first in the West as an expansion team. That's considered too hard. But I think there was a 5-year span in there from 15 to 20 where it was like, maybe it's actually easier with the elements you have as an expansion team than to rebuild FC Cincinnati on the fly, where you already have contracts and pieces in place and a culture that's broken that you're trying to fix. But the Noonan part becomes tough because you have last year and this year combined. Where if Pat Noonan had joined this year and did this,
there
would be no question about it. I think Pat Noonan will get it. Or actually, I will vote for him probably if they win Supporters Shield.
On the balance of work, I think I agree right now. I'm leaning Noonan, but we'll see where it goes. Okay, let's finish off with Nancy Pierce in the mailbag. You can always get at us via email, extratime@mlsoccer.com, or Twitter, chronically online here. So if you could clone any current MLS player to create an entire starting 11, who would it be? I'll go first. Ryan Hollingshead.
Was that Nancy's answer or your
That's
answer?
Nancy's. Yeah, no, yeah. Sorry,
That's a really good answer.
Yeah, I didn't really establish that in the best way. That was
No,
a little,
you tweet like Pat Mahomes. That's a good answer. He has played winger. He's played as a 10. He's played as a fullback. He's tall enough to battle at center back. Goalkeeper, I'm not even going to pretend. Obviously, my answer is Matthew Chouanier, the human Swiss Army knife.
That's fair.
The legend.
Should have seen that one coming. Yeah.
I'll jump in here and take someone before Christian Roldan. Christian Roldan is
that's a
my
good one.
answer.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's literally the only guy I had for this answer, and I have no idea where to go. 11 Lionel Messi's.
Yeah.
I just don't-
yeah.
I mean, where am I else going to go with that? I don't know. 11 Jose Martinez's. You're going to have
That'd
a
be
lot of injuries on the other team.
This is like for one of the first times ever. I'm just complete. I have nothing.
You're
I'm
speechless.
I'm
You're right
completely
about
I
speechless
think
right
a
now.
good one would be Kellen Acosta. He's played all
yeah.
over the field. He can take set pieces himself, but he's big enough to also be a factor on them.
You know what? I have one.
Oh, well,
In the spirit of Wilfred Nancy, 11 Sean Zawadzki.
Oh, I like
Nice.
that.
I was about to say Ali Ahmed.
Ali Ahmed would be a good shout.
Shout out to Ali Ahmed.
You want to
You're
do
going to
the
go
thing?
Andrew Privet.
We talked.
Yeah, Andrew Privet.
we talked about Ali Ahmed on the match preview.
on MLS season.
That's like
pass.
that's like a
MLS
5 for right there. I think
That's a
they've hit
record.
5
Yeah.
Like,
references on that.
Everybody, not everybody, but like often get asked like who's a player under the radar that nobody's talking about, and Ali Ahmed has been so far under the radar that even we have not been talking about him. But we talked about him on MLS Season Pass because he is a pressing monster in central midfield. Like he is taking minutes away from Alexander Schropp, who is a Bundesliga veteran, a very good number 8 in this league. Ali Ahmed just has been wonderful for this team.
Who's a Max Chaos pick
Can I?
for you?
I was going to give 2 more picks.
Coco Carrasquilla.
Coco Carrasquilla is a good one. Jesus Ferreira, I think, is up there. Kervin Arriaga. Guy plays like 5 different spots.
Joseph Rosales. If we're just going down the...
One in the same. Let's just swap him in. Well, Hassani Dotson would be in that combo as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
shot.
Oh, boy.
Adrian's just collecting.
Oh, it's got to be. I can't remember who's the injured Finnish guy. Robin Ludd.
Yeah, Robin.
Oh,
Ludd.
Robin Ludd.
Yeah. Okay. And on that note, we
My
are outta
Robin
here.
Ludd, Matthew
That was
Chouanier,
a great way to
11.
finish the show. All right. Enjoy the weekend. Matchday 32 should be awesome. Bunch of rivalry games. Playoff push is off and running. We will see you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Adios.